Because 2023 is an election year, it has become understandable and possibly even acceptable to tie everything down to the general elections. But not so for the justice sector. A lot of things must continue unabated. And so we have decided to begin a series of looks into the things that the justice sector has to offer Nigeria, even in an election year, that would give confidence to every citizen. Welcome to The Scale. I am Femi Okeowo. Only recently, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, gave a scorecard of what this administration has been doing in terms of the justice sector. And we picked a number of things that we think we want to again stress out to you in terms of how we can build more confidence in our justice sector in Nigeria. Let's take highlights of some of the submissions of Abubakar Malami while giving a scorecard of the justice sector in Nigeria.
The ministry is equally coordinating the next phase of terrorism-related trials in collaboration with the Federal High Court, the Legal Aid Council, and Defense Headquarters. So in this regard, the ministry is currently remodeling structures at the Wawa Cantonment, Kenji, to accommodate 8 courtrooms, taking into consideration the fact that there is need for speedy determination of cases and there was shortage of courtrooms. We have taken steps to have in place 8 courtrooms, judges' chambers, living accommodation, lawyers' dressing room, and convenience to make them conducive for judges, witnesses, as well as defendants. The need to have a permanent structure arose on account of the fact that before now, what obtains in terms of terrorism and Boko Haram cases was an ad hoc arrangement. An ad hoc arrangement of moving judges from jurisdictions to a particular location for them now for the prosecution to hold. And whenever they are demobilized, the idea of mobilizing them back to side has become a problem. And out of the need for speedy determination of these cases, the volume of cases, and the need for efficient justice delivery system, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria considered the need to have permanent structures in place associated with the prosecution of terrorism cases. And that is what indeed brought about the need to have permanent structures, and the project has indeed advanced. Has indeed advanced. So what I'm saying in essence, the intervention of President Muhammadu Buhari is not only about the prosecution of cases, but providing the necessary structures to ensure sustainable arrangement and not indeed an ad hoc arrangement for prosecution of terrorism cases. Again, of recent, we were faced with the issue of sexual and gender-based violence. And then the need arose for speedy intervention, and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria had indeed lived up to the expectations of the public in addressing the scourge that has manifested itself. So in response to the growing incidents of sexual and gender-based violence in the country, the President directed the establishment of an inter-ministerial management committee on the education of SGBV cases. Further to this, the ministry has established the SGBV response unit, which activities have yielded the following successes out of desire to address the problem. One, facilitation of access to justice for the victims of sexual-based violence through prosecution, legal counseling, and negotiation of settlement agreement between parties on family law issues with focus on protection of rights of women and children. Two, the establishment of robust referral mechanism with relevant key MDAs and stakeholders, which has as well been put in place. Three, strengthening of the knowledge of the sexual gender-based violence cases through capacity building programs, and indeed designation of 4 courts on SGBV by the Chief Judge of the FCT.
Imagine any society without laws. Imagine piles of laws without the courts to interpret them. Imagine lots of interpretation without a medium to bring them to your doorsteps. The scale on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority helps to fill the gaps and turns law and justice into a tangible instrument for national development. That is the scale, and it is balance.
And now, after hearing some of just the highlights of what Abubakar Malami had to say during his scorecard session, let's go to one of the departments that really is at the helm of affairs in terms of justice for Nigeria. It is the department that prosecutes crimes and cases before the various courts. And I'm talking about the Department of Public Prosecution of the Federal Ministry of Justice. We're going to talk to the director in that department. Join us on this segment. Now let's look at this year, 2023. There are so many political cases in court. And even before 2023, there have been a lot in 2022 and 2021. How much of these political cases have affected the prosecution of crime in Nigeria?
Well, the prosecution of pre-election matters, largely because election petitions have not commenced yet, has not affected prosecution of criminal matters in any fundamental way, because the judges and the courts have managed their diaries very well. The judicial arm has designated judges that are handling these pre-election matters. So prosecution of criminal matters are going on. There may be instances where, because some of these cases are time-bound, the pre-election matters are time-bound, may cause delays here and there, but not in any fundamental way. Yes.
Now, how has the prosecution gone generally, whether in politics or not? In courts, there has always been the call for synergy between the ministries that handle the file, the police that do the arrest and give preliminary reports of crimes, and indeed the prisons or the correctional centers where these suspects are kept. How much of a synergy do we have from all the arms that you need to work with?
The Ministry of Justice collaborates very well with all stakeholders. When I say stakeholders here, I mean the judiciary, the correctional service, the police, and all security forces, the DSS inclusive. Yes, the security forces send case files for advice, and sometimes when we advise, we send the case back to them for prosecution. In some instances, we return for prosecution, and the courts have always been very, very cooperative. Yes.
Investigation is a major area that we need to strengthen. Who does the investigation? Is this the Ministry of Justice, or whether at state level or at the federal level, or is it the police? When they seek advice, when they bring files for advice, where do you depend on for investigation?
Largely, the police. The police is the security arm of the government that investigate cases. Of course, you have other security forces. You have the DSS. You have even the Nigerian Civil Defense Corps. You have the EFCC. You have the ICPC. But by and large, it's the police and the DSS. Terrorism cases is largely investigated by the DSS. We have what we call Joint Investigation Center, domicile in Maiduguri, that investigate terrorism cases, insurgencies. But you know that we have banditry, we have IPOB. Yeah. So the DSS is at the center of these investigations. Yeah, and when they conclude investigations, they send case files. Yeah, some of the files I took home for. Yeah, largely came from the DSS, and we have been doing this in a well-coordinated manner. Generally, there is very good synergy between all the stakeholders that are charged with responsibility of the administration of criminal justice.
Good. We will come to terrorism cases because that's a topic in itself. But let's still dwell on prosecution of crimes generally. Give us the current situation of what the law says about police prosecuting. I know that it was tinkered with a little bit that only police who are lawyers can prosecute. Are they still prosecuting, or is it strictly the ministries that prosecute?
You know, constitutionally,
yes,
the Attorney General of the Federation is the custodian of the prosecutorial authority of the Federation. Okay. But you have acts of the National Assembly that confer powers on certain agencies, inclusive of the police, to prosecute. Of course, this is at the pleasure of the Attorney General, Section 174, to the extent that he can at any time take over and continue or discontinue such prosecutions. So the police are still prosecuting, the FCC are prosecuting, the ICPC are prosecuting. So quite a number of agencies that are conferred with the powers under their enabling acts, yes, are prosecuting side by side with the Ministry of Justice or the Attorney General.
Nigeria has used the Administration of Criminal Justice Act for 8 years thereabout now. How helpful you really are the ones using it on a daily basis. How helpful has that act been, and what areas of improvement would you want?
The Administration of Criminal Justice Act is no doubt an innovative legislation. It has in many ways improved the speed of prosecution in court. For instance, there are provisions that places limitations on the length of adjournment you can seek. There are provisions that places limitations on the powers of the law enforcement to detain for purposes of investigation. There are provisions that forbids proxy arrests.
Okay.
Yes. So the Administration of Criminal Justice Act has no doubt been successful. There will always be room for improvements, yeah. But by and large, it's quite innovative and helpful.
And I see that in the Federal Ministry of Justice, there are monitoring departments of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. They give you feedback as to how it has been used in various states and in the federal courts.
Yes, we have the Administration of Criminal Justice Monitoring Committee. It's a committee that monitors the application of the Act and also assists in ensuring that relevant provisions of the Act are implemented to assist in speedy dispensation of justice. Yes.
Let's now go to terrorism cases. How well has the Federal Ministry of Justice been able to do any fundamental prosecution in terms of number of terrorism cases?
So far, so good. Very well. I can tell you that during the trial, the 2017-2018 trial, over 2,000 cases were disposed of. And the trial was supposed to be a continuous process. But unfortunately, the advent of the pandemic, COVID, interrupted our pace. So we had to stop during that period. Although cases, and this I refer to those cases that we are handling, prosecuting at the Wawa Cantonment, Kainji.
Yes.
We have a holding facility there.
Yes.
And the Ministry of Justice, in collaboration with other stakeholders, the judiciary, decided to move the venue of the trial to Kainji to obviate the need for logistical requirement of moving suspect and defendant to and from court long distance with the attendant risk and the security threat that will be inherent in such activities. So the 2017-2018 trial took place in Kainji. It is designed to continue there because as I speak, we have suspects at the holding center. But the trial was interrupted by the COVID pandemic. But the trial of terrorism cases in other venues like Abuja and other places are ongoing.
You don't make that public anymore. I know that we covered Kabir, Sokoto, all these other places, people. We covered them when they were the trial. Now they hardly are made public. People don't hear of them being prosecuted in places like Abuja or any other venues.
Sometimes we do this deliberately because of the inherent security implication in publicity. You see, we have had jailbreaks, we have had attacks in Kainji. So we thought it's only proper to hold back some information for security reasons. Yes. The ministry, in collaboration with judiciary and law enforcement agencies, the preparations are at very, very advanced stage to resume trials in Kainji. But after the 2017-2018 trials, we did a postmortem of the entire activities and came to the conclusion that because Wawa is a military facility, it's not a purpose-built facility for trials and detention of suspects. The trials in 2017-2018 were conducted in an atmosphere that was less than conducive for everyone. So the ministry decided to intervene by providing better facilities, remodeling what we have there, So as I speak, a lot of work is going on to provide 8 courtrooms with judges' chambers, dressing rooms for lawyers, and as well as accommodation, because again, for security considerations, everyone that is going to participate in the process
should be in the
will remain within the military facility.
Okay.
So that necessitated the need for us to provide this accommodation. So work is ongoing, and soon we'll resume trials. I don't want to be specific on the date, again, for security considerations. Yes, and on statistics, we have about 2,000 pending cases now that we will file and prosecute when we resume. Some have already been filed, actually. Yes.
Do you transfer suspects from various locations? And what training are you giving to military personnel who actually do the arrests? One thing we discovered when we went to Kainji in 2017 is a crime is committed and military do a sweeping arrest. How to sieve out who is culpable and who is not becomes a major problem for the judiciary. What training are you giving them in evidence gathering?
Yeah, I thought I mentioned earlier that we have a Joint Investigation Center domiciled in Maiduguri, JIC we call it.
Okay.
It comprises of the DSS,
Yes.
the police, the military, and all law enforcement agencies. So when arrests are made either from the front line or from anywhere, they are taken to the JIC, and that's an investigation center. We also deploy prosecutors on bi-monthly basis to work with the investigators in profiling and giving legal advice. It is after this process that suspects that we think we have prima facie evidence of offenses against are transferred from Maiduguri to Kainji. Yes.
Now, as we round up this discussion, let us talk about your staff strength. Can I ask how adequate your lawyers who should help in this major task of the federal government?
We are no doubt understaffed, and as you know, there has been embargo on employment. The Federal Civil Service Commission has not recruited for some years. We can do with more hands, but as it is, we are managing what we have. Yes.
Thank you very much for talking with us on the scale.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Abubakar Mohammed Babadoko there talking to us on the duties of the Department of Prosecution for the Federal Ministry of Justice in his capacity as the Chief Prosecutor of Nigeria. More issues continue to arise even in an election year, like I have hinted at the beginning of the program, and you can trust that on the scale we shall be moving around to see all those areas that would interest you in terms of how to improve our justice sector in Nigeria. We'll see you again.